prophesied during the time of Assyrian captivity. In other words, while they were hopeless, he was trying to bring hope after he was one that prophesied about captivity. In other words, he prophesied that they're going to be in captivity. Then he came back to prophesy about renewal and restoration. Amen? And Israel, like church folks today, when things are not going their way, they don't want to hear what the preacher got to say.
That's right.
Amen? No. When my money's funny, I don't want to hear what you got to say. Amen. When my wife or husband's not acting right, I don't want to hear what you got to say. If things are not going well in my home, I'll wear it on my face when I come to church. Amen. And Ezekiel shows up, amen, and he shows up trying to let them know the God of captivity is the same God of restoration and renewal. Amen. Look at somebody and say, oh, count me out. You can't count me out, because they began to count themselves out. They began to disqualify themselves. They began to forget the promises of God. They began to say the promise of God is not real. The promise of God is not true. What God said he was going to do for us, deliver us out of this captivity and return us home, it's not going to happen. And they began to feel like, I have no hope. And so God, not long after he told Ezekiel, I'm going to remove the pleasure of your eyes. I don't want you to mourn. I don't want you to shed a tear. I'm going to remove the pleasure of your eye. And I want you to put your turban on and your sandals on and prophesy. Ezekiel said, the next day I prophesied, and that evening my wife died, and I did as I was commanded.
My God.
Now the Lord comes to Ezekiel while he's broken in spirit because his wife is there. He wanted her to live, but God said it was time for her to go. But ministry that was in him had to go on.
That's right.
Very challenging to preach the gospel. It's not always what it looks like. And so Ezekiel now is sitting mourning. He didn't tell him not to mourn, he said mourn in silence. And while he is mourning, the hand of the Lord comes upon him. Isn't that something?
Yes,
the hand of the Lord comes upon him. Amen?
Amen.
Not the physical hand, amen, but the authority of God comes upon him.
Yes, sir.
Amen. He said, I got to give you the authority. I have to give you the exousia. I have to give you the delegated authority. I have to give you the right to use, because I see the condition of my people. He said, now the hand of the Lord came upon him. And what did he say? He said, the hand of the Lord came upon me, and the Spirit of the Lord took me out. Listen to that. And the Spirit of the Lord took me out, saying out-of-body experience. He didn't physically take him. He took him out to a valley and set him in the midst of the valley. And Ezekiel said, while I was sitting in the valley, I noticed something, that I was surrounded by bones. I was surrounded by bones. And he goes on to say that the Spirit carried me around the bones. And as I looked at all the bones, I can tell you from that inspection that the bones were very dry. The bones were very dry. There was no sinew on the bones. There was no muscle on the bone. There was no flesh on the bone. There was no skin on the bones. The bones were very dry. Dry bones. After he inspects the bones, then God asks him a question. Son of man, can these bones live? Ezekiel